Welcome back to Common Ground, an inside look at Suffolk County. I'm your host, Sheriff Steve Tompkins. Now, on this side of the show, we've got Donald Berwick here. And Don is also running for governor of the Commonwealth, and he's got some really good, strong, innovative ideas. Principally, his background has been in healthcare, but I'm sure he's done a whole host of other things. And he's going to talk to us about that today. And so without any further ado, Don, thank you so much for coming on.
It's an honor to be with you,
Really
Steve. Thank you so
appreciate it,
much.
sir. So first and foremost, before we jump into the meat of the issues, what's the experience like traversing the Commonwealth, campaigning, and really getting to know your neighbors?
It's exciting. It's inspiring. It's deepening. I mean, I've been all over the state. I've been at this almost a year now, and I'll tell you, meeting people in living rooms and libraries and town hall meetings, it's what democracy really is, and it's what a privilege it is to get to meet people on those grounds. They care. They show up. Each has his own issues or her own issues. They care deeply about them. I learn every day. It's an amazing privilege.
Do you find that people show up to nitpick, or do you find that they show up because they're really passionate about their communities and their families?
Yeah, you know, people think people are disaffected from politics. They're not involved. No, that's not what I'm saying. They really do care. I mean, these are deeply important issues, and it ranges from nitpicking. No, I don't think I've seen that. It ranges from overarching issues of social values, justice, equality, things that are motivating me to run, which people care about, down to local issues that are very, very important. You know, what's going to happen to my community? There's threats or concerns in the local environment. So it's a very textured state. You know, different regions, different cities, different towns, they have their own issues. They all feel important, and people really care about them.
So to that end, you're beginning an issue of the week, I believe it's called Initiative, and you're beginning with Poverty Awareness Week, which is this week.
Yeah.
Talk to us. Well, first of all, tell us why you're going to do an issue a week, and then talk to us about this particular week's issue, which is poverty awareness.
Well, I think of the most progressive candidate in this field. I think there are issues in American society reflected here in Massachusetts also that just have been, they're not being confronted. We're not dealing with them. We're unfortunately a country right now backing away from the fundamental values and concerns that I think made us a great nation, make us a great nation. Social justice, equality, compassion, the ability to really commit to helping each other. And I don't like that backing away. We're seeing a lot of it in Washington right now. The polarization there is keeping people from returning to the core about what kind of nation we want to be, what kind of state we want to be, and what kind of communities we want to have. This comes in the form of issues that we've got to confront and deal with, and we can. This is the first state to make healthcare a human right. We're the first state to say you can marry the person you love. We have advanced, probably nation-leading energy policy now, thanks to Governor Patrick. We can do the same now on some of these core issues that the country is backing away from. And I would say of all of the concerns, maybe poverty is number one. We still are a nation that tolerates, that lets poverty exist in the context of wealth. That's not right. That's not right. And I think we need to talk about that. So yeah, we're gonna have an issue a week approximately, mostly progressive issues that we care about. We'll do corrections reform. I know you'll be interested in that. But a lot of this traces back to poverty in our society, people who just can't get with the modern economy, and that's not okay. We need to get over that.
So let me give you the lunatic fringe approach to poverty. When they say that the capitalist system, for it to be effective, that there has to be a certain percentage that's the underclass or the underbelly. Where do you come down on that?
That's win-lose thinking, and I'm a win-win thinker. You know, that's a Darwinist point of view. You know, for someone to win, somebody has to lose. No, we have wealth, we have our communities, the natural environment. We can be a just and moral society and not leave anybody in a ditch, of misfortune. I'm a pediatrician, and I took care of kids for 20 years. A lot of them were kids in very stressed families, on Medicaid, and in deep trouble. And every single one of them, I felt we need to help this person. And we are declaring a goal during our Poverty Awareness Week of eliminating childhood poverty in Massachusetts in a decade. I know that's bold, but we can do it. We have to get together as communities and as a state and decide to do it. Why would we leave someone hungry? Why would we leave someone homeless or not able to feel, watching life through a TV screen?
Okay, so let me play devil's advocate, because these are all good questions that you just asked. But then you'll have the countervailing view is that it takes money, and you're going to have to spend a lot of money to eradicate poverty. What do you say to legislators and others that say that's a part of who we should be, that's what we should be about?
First, money's important. It takes more than money. It takes compassion and a sense of justice and a vision of the kind of community we want to have. This is about who we are, not just about what we spend. And I know the community I want to live in and what I want to pass on to my children, my grandchildren. And it's a community of equality. I don't begrudge the wealthy their wealth if they earn it honestly, but I do not want to be in a community which has people in deep trouble. If you are interested in the money, wait a minute. Poverty costs money. You know what it costs to have someone in prison.
Here it is.
$40,000 a year, I read.
Right.
Kid failing in school. We know there's studies now that kids who can't read in the 3rd grade, they're going to cost $400,000 more over the lifetime that we're going to have to help them than if they can read.
Right.
A hungry child is a child who can't learn. You know, a child threatened by environmental threats because we don't have environmental justice is a kid who's going to get asthma, and that'll be an adult with chronic illness. No. Poverty costs far more money than does the cure of poverty, and I know that. One of the secrets to eliminating poverty is going to be teamwork, though. This money that we put into after the fact, after the horse left the barn,
right.
It comes in pieces, corrections, mental health, physical health, schools, social work. If you actually study what's going into our public investments, let alone private ones, in a homeless person or a person who is having trouble in society, it's a lot of money. If we make a team of ourselves, if we actually organize around people and get their backs, the costs go down, they don't go up. So look, I'm a businessman. I started and grew a nonprofit business from tiny to world affecting, involved in the world. This is investment. This isn't expenditure.
Talk to me about healthcare. That's where you spent the lion's share of your professional career. Talk to us about what we need to do as a Commonwealth and as a nation to get our arms around taking care of ours and our neighbors.
Well, there's good news and there's bad news. The good news is, just from the viewpoint of the state, we're a wonderful state with respect to a lot of health care. It's miraculous what we can do. There were kids I took care of in my early training who died all the time of diseases that we can cure now. I celebrate the miracles. We also are the first state to make health care a human right. Like I said, in 2006, we took that step. The country, we're 8 years later, and the country still is struggling about that. So let's take a bow. But now we have problems. They surface around both the kind of care people get, which if they're really, really sick is going to be fine. But if they have chronic illness, if they like have diabetes, they're going to live through a journey, they're going to get confused and lost. We don't do prevention, not anything like we should in this state. I mean, we can prevent tons of heart disease, heart attacks and strokes. When I was running Medicare and Medicaid, I launched with the Centers for Disease Control an effort to avert a million heart attacks and strokes in the country. We did it because we could do it. The other thing is cost, though. I mean, healthcare is taking a lot away from other things, and we're the most expensive state in the union with respect to health care. If you look at our state budget, every line item is down over the 10-year period that I've looked at. So parks and recreation down 25%, local aids down, I think, 40%, higher education down 30%. We're putting that on the backs of the students and families. Early childhood education down 30%, but health care is up 59%. And that's because we built the system wrong. It's not meeting people's needs. It's creating a lot of confusion and a lot of lost life and vitality. When healthcare works right, it's lower cost. And I know that. I've spent 30 years working on healthcare reform for real. I don't mean payment reform, I mean delivery reform.
Right.
And I think you better have a governor in that corner office that understands this. Otherwise, healthcare is going to eat our lunch.
Right.
And I'm the only candidate favoring Medicare for all in this state, single-payer care. I think we could take a big step towards simplification.
So in my travels, I've heard that healthcare, in one part, costs a lot of money because for those who can't afford medicine, can't afford healthcare, can't afford hospitalizations, others have to pay the higher freight to help those that can't. Is that a nonsensical approach or argument?
It works the other way around. We know when someone can't get health care, the costs will go up because eventually we're going to deal with them. But what happens is they have high blood pressure, but it doesn't get treated because they can't get in the system, or we haven't provided the continuity. Well, high blood pressure leads to a stroke. And once they have a stroke or a heart attack, then we'll treat them. But can you imagine what the costs look like for treating a heart attack versus preventing it? So it's exactly the opposite. A just and fair healthcare system which invites everyone in and works really on health is a lower cost system. I worked for a year and a half in Alaska in healthcare. With my wife had a sabbatical, we moved there, and I worked in the Indian Health Service, single payer system, community owned, organized around health. In 5 years, that system reduced hospital use 53%. 53%. That's better care at lower cost, and we can go that. That's what I'm working at for most of my career.
Talk to me about education. Where do you come down on that?
You know, if you're on the trail, you probably know this. People say, well, what's issue number one? What's the most important thing? I always kind of dodge it. I mean, everything's important, but if you have to really answer, it's education. It seems to be a mainstay, whether you're interested in the economy and jobs or vitality and human development. And we're pretty good in this state. I mean, overall, for elementary and secondary schools, we're rated high in the country, but that doesn't tell the story. The story is about equality and uniform excellence. I live in Newton, Massachusetts, a wonderful school system. Our graduation rate from high school in Newton is 96%. In Holyoke, it's 53%. You know, you watch what's happening, and we're just not committing ourselves to guaranteeing every single child in this state world-class education. It's worth the investment. And I think to the extent we are trying, it's a little bit off the mark because we're now hooked on these standardized tests and, you know, teach to the test and ticking the box, MCAS, all that. You know, we need some standards, but I think the teachers are getting hurt by this. A great education system values teachers above everything, so the kids can be valued.
Teachers are the true heroes, not sports figures.
They're not the problem, they're the solution. And I want to restore pride and autonomy to teachers so they can develop the curricula they want. I talked to a teacher a couple months ago. I was in Pittsfield, and she teared up as she talked about the librarians got fired, and the arts program is gone, and the drama program is gone. And early childhood is also important. I'm a pediatrician, and we need to commit to universal preparation of every kid under 5 to get ready for school. And then I'm concerned about our higher education in the state, our community colleges. We have 29 state-supported institutions of higher education. They're a gem. 90% of the kids that go to those stay in the state. It's an investment in our future. And you look at the facilities, you look at the overall quality, it's not what it should be, and that's an area of investment. All of this is investment, Steve. There's no question about that, but it's investment with payback.
A moment ago, you mentioned that the governor or the person in that corner office really needs to be on top of the healthcare discussion, but I would also think that equally important is educational parity across the Commonwealth. You know, the numbers that you just cited, 96 versus 53. Do you have a plan that would kind of, at least a discussion that equalizes that across the Commonwealth?
Yeah. I've worked on improvement for 30 years. That's my career, and that happens in local community by local community, but with central support. I think we could have first. We need ambitious goals here. We need to stop this. We need to do some technical fixes. I think the formula for distribution of resources to communities is old. It was last reset, I think, in 1993 or even earlier. It's time to reconsider that. So there's some big adjustments. But I think we need to release communities to do the kind of innovations they know how to do and give them supports to develop local tests of change in the way the education system goes under the control of the educators, not some force in Beacon Hill or worse, Washington. I also am a fan of collaborative learning, and if I can explain that for a minute.
Please.
So for example, I started a program in my organization, the nonprofit that I ran on healthcare, to save lives in hospitals by reducing injuries in hospitals. And a lot of people die in hospitals because there are mistakes in their care. So we invited hospitals to join and reduce errors and injuries. Eventually 3,100 hospitals joined, but they were in a learning network. So if your hospital figured out a way to prevent that kind of infection, I could find out from you. And if my hospital invented a way to reduce medication errors, I could tell you. We used to say, all teach, all learn. I want to do that in the Commonwealth. We have 351 towns and cities. I want all teach, all learn. Let's have a view of shared learning and growth and development here. And I will lead that personally. If I am governor, I will lead a community consortium in which any willing community can get together, and we'll figure out how to protect kids and how to make sure that they're successful in school.
And your thoughts on charter schools?
Nuanced there. The idea is not so bad. I mean, you want in any system, you want innovation. I'm an innovator. That's where I come from. You figure out a different way. So you want to sponsor tests innovations. And the idea, well, let's have some schools that have a special circumstance, they can innovate faster than the mainstream. But I'm absolutely committed to public education. We can't back away from that. It is the mainstay. And so a limited number of charters, I would raise the cap a bit, but here are the rules. Rule one is, if you want to be a charter, you take the same selection of kids as the public system is dealing with. You can't skim. You can't take a kid in trouble, send him back to the public system. No games. The second is, if you learn something, you have to share it. You can't keep it to yourself. And too many charters are kind of withholding and not sharing back. And the third is no for-profits. I don't want to make a for-profit business out of education. Under those conditions, a limited number of charters, I'll watch them, and if they help, they help. But the test of a charter is it helping the public school system, not can it survive itself? And then there's interesting forms of in-district charters, which are some in Boston, and I'm curious about those. So I'd say to some extent, but not to injure the public system.
I want to talk to you about business. I want you to talk to us about business. Two-part question. One, how do you attract more businesses to the Commonwealth? And second part is, how do you keep the businesses that are here, particularly the Fortune 500s, the big muckety-mucks, how do you keep those businesses in the Commonwealth?
Well, my plan for that is 5 parts, and it's key because we want economic development eventually is a big solution to a lot of what we've been talking about. First, we need attractive communities that where people want to live. You watch communities that develop they call it complete streets, where mobility is easy, where there's local, where public safety is taken seriously, where lighting is good, and where the infrastructure works, where there's mixed-use housing, where there's parks are supported, where this local school is good, where there's a T-stop. These, or a bus stop, these communities, they thrive. People want to go there. Well, then businesses will go there, and if businesses go there, jobs are there. So that's one, community development, and we could do a ton here. Every community in this state has strengths. We should build on those.
No doubt.
Second is innovation financing. We can support entrepreneurs, including immigrant family entrepreneurs, which are a big mainstay of local entrepreneurship, with small amounts of support to help them understand how to get through regulations, to give them access to capital and credit. That's paid off handsomely in some areas, like our clean energy economy is thriving because we put some support into that. We can do that a lot. Third is education development. We can do some very exciting things in education by linking schools with businesses, so that kids, as they're even in high school, let alone college, they're already in relationship to companies that want to train them, that understand their skill mix. That's innovation. The fourth is taking away obstacles to business, and I talk to business leaders. They always tell me 2 obstacles, by the way. Healthcare costs are too high, so if you care about business, you better care about healthcare. And they say regulations are somewhat silly, and can we please simplify? And the answer is yes, you can. And when I was head of Medicare, we took away 100 regulations that made no sense. I like doing that. If they don't help anybody, why would they be there? And the fifth is a great place to work. That's why I support a minimum wage and a living wage beyond that. Earn sick time, good unemployment supports. That's why I want women to get paid equally to men, not 77% of what men get paid. And the development of a work environment where people want to thrive. And frankly, that's why unions are good. I've been meeting with the unions, and I think, man, they stand up for people who really need voice. So developing a work environment where people want to work, it's not simple. Any candidate that gives you one answer to how do you grow the economy is not going to be telling the truth.
As governor, how would you inspire entrepreneurship?
Innovation funding matters a lot. So being able to have very small amounts can go a long way. By the way, that can come from private sector or public sector.
Okay.
I was in Amesbury, Massachusetts, and I visited a private incubation laboratory. This guy started a place as big as this studio, but there are desks all over, and he'll give you support. For not much money, you can get an accountant and help with your website design and instruction about how to solve legal problems. And he's got a dozen, I think more than a dozen, little companies starting up. That idea is a really important one, and we can do it with sectors of the economy as well. We've done it with clean energy. The numbers now are staggering. We have 80,000 clean energy jobs in this state, 80,000, 5,500 clean energy firms, 24% growth in clean energy jobs in the past 2 years. That didn't happen by accident. That's because the governor and the legislature began saying, this is the place where we're going to give you some help to get started and nurture a clean energy environment. We can do that as we have already in biotechnology, and there are other sectors that we can develop that way.
Criminal justice.
You're the expert. I should be interviewing you on this one, Steve. I know. Here's my feeling. I think we are in trouble. I think this is a state that's underinvested in a really important set of structures that help people who are in trouble and some need to be punished, get back into the mainstream. My hat is off to you and the other sheriffs I've met, because I think you're doing a lot with your hands tied by budgetary constraints and cuts that I don't seem right to me. The politics of this is fraught because people say, oh, bad guys, don't, and bad women don't help them. No. So it's three things for me. I think we're putting too many people in our prisons.
Oh, yeah.
I think we have 12,000 people in county houses of correction, 12,000 in state prison. I talked to one of your colleagues who says he thinks half of the people in the county house of correction, they've got mental health problems. They're substance abuse, behavioral issues. They need treatment, and they probably shouldn't be in prison in the first place. We should have a strong mental health, substance abuse infrastructure
That's right.
instead of stuffing prisons full of people
Well,
who
the
should be
legislators
elsewhere.
have taken the money out of mental health beds and detox beds. We're the last, we become the de facto.
Yeah. I was at a homeless shelter yesterday in Lowell. Wonderful place. What dedicated staff as part of Poverty Awareness Week. But that's what they were telling me, that they're the last place to go because the rehab beds, they're not there. So people in big trouble come to a cot, and that's not treatment. I think that the other thing is mandatory sentencing, 3 strikes you're out kind of stuff. No. Let's give give some latitude to courts to really figure out what the right thing is to do. Then when we're in incarceration, you know better than me, but I think we cut those supports to those programs. Spoke to Sean McAdam, one of the heads of County House Correction, and he was telling me that it used to be they had the funding, they could find the funding to give incarcerated people as they left the facility enough medicine to just get through the month if they're on mental health treatment, so they can get into mass health, get coverage. They can get 5 days now, maybe not a month. Well, what do you think you're doing? You're taking a person who needs medication, taking it away. What do you expect?
Well, one of the things that we're doing in Suffolk is that we're actually talking to some of the community health centers and some of the healthcare practitioners about coming in, matching them up with the inmate population 3 to 6 months before they leave, so that when they exit, they already have that in place. Someone mentioned to me that it takes around 52 days to get mass health once you get out. So why not begin the paperwork while you're still with us? That's one of the things that we're looking at, excuse me, because we just think it makes good sense that when you get out, you have that coverage.
Yeah, let me say again, what you're doing with limited resources and other sheriffs that I've talked to is stunning. You deserve applause for this because I think you're really fighting the right fight, but I think you need resources to do it. And again, this is investment because with recidivism rate at 60% or whatever.
46, but still it's high, way too high.
Way too high. And you know, where I believe it's true, I've seen studies, if you have education programs, vocational education, mental health support, substance abuse treatment in the prison or the house of correction, the recidivism rate goes down. What do you expect? And that would be smart. And when I asked Mr. McAdam, if you could change one thing, tell me one thing that would make a difference, he said just what you said. He said, I want a different relationship with the mental health system so that I'm getting people ready to go out into a system that's ready to hold them. And to me, it's compassion, it's just, and it's financially.
Well, let me offer you this though, but it's also that it's a continuum of care. And what I mean by that is, we're also invited parole and probation in to talk to us. Oftentimes when ex-offenders or inmates leave, they have to go to parole, they have to go to probation, they have to do programming and then just kind of wean themselves off the system. So one of the things that we're looking at is, can we start some of those programs that they need to do once they're out while they're still in, and they begin to accrue time so that the time that they're actually on the outside doing these programs shrinks. We have to look at that continuum of care because as a society, Don, we can no longer afford to warehouse people. If we're the house of correction, we have to correct. Okay, warehousing just doesn't work. $46,000 annually to incarcerate one person. I have $1,800. And then when you take mom or dad out of that family unit, there's little wonder to me that kids of the incarcerated, and there's empirical data that speaks to this, kids of the incarcerated are more likely to offend than those that were in a complete family unit. So you're not only hurting society by putting so many people in jail that shouldn't be there, but you're also hurting the family unit.
I'm with you completely. If I'm governor, we're gonna get this fixed, and with your leadership, I think that the people in the correction system that I've met, they know what this is a matter of. They know what should happen. It's a matter of public commitment. They tell me pretrial detention is a problem because we take people even before they're committed to incarceration, taking them out of their families, hurting their jobs, hurting their kids.
Right.
No, let's think of a different way to do it. And we're going to need voice. This is going to involve leadership to win the public for this very important agenda about which I think there is some misunderstanding. But that's a fight I'll have.
Yeah, it's definitely a collective effort. Where do you come down on casinos? What's your thoughts?
I think I'm still the only candidate for governor against casinos in the Democratic field right now. I think it's a bad deal for the state and for communities that have them or will. Casinos, they cause trouble in the communities they enter. We know that. There are, I think, 12 states that have casinos, so we have the data. DUI goes up, minor crime goes up, it becomes less safe in the environment. Small businesses get hurt because these are big businesses that are taking their space. We know that it doesn't generate as much revenue as it looks like it will because it cannibalizes the lottery. So the lottery revenue will go down, and we use the lottery revenue very well in this state. And to my mind, it's being a physician and a person concerned about public health. It adds a public health problem. We're going to add gambling addiction to a mental health system that already is inadequate. That hurts the victim. It hurts the family. It hurts the community. I wouldn't go there, and I don't think it's a smart move. I'm against casinos, and I'm for the repeal move, and I stand on that. I think it's the right change for the state.
So the way that we're doing this, the way the Gaming Commission is doing this, it seems that it's a relatively open process, pretty transparent. But it's interesting to me that they're having a lot of difficulty with getting these things up and going, which speaks to whether or not they should be here or not. I mean, are you getting that sense that there's community pushback on this
Yeah,
issue?
well, some communities, of course, have decided not to have them, and I'm with them. And our own governor, who brought the law forward in the first place, says he wouldn't have one in his, he wouldn't support one in his community, as does our Speaker of the House. I mean, where there's smoke, there's fire, and I think that in this case, you know, I'm not attacking the businesses that are casinos. I mean,
Sure.
maybe they're responsible businessmen, but for this state, it doesn't fit. It's not right, and there are other ways to build economic vitality. That's my view.
So we just went through the caucus phase, and we're just about to end the signature gathering phase. Talk to me about the caucuses and getting out there and doing that whole run.
It was cool. I mean, it was really interesting. Very, very demanding. I mean, I think there were over 600 caucuses in this state among the 351 towns and cities, and we had actually either our own field people or representatives at about 500 of them. So we covered the state. You have to. At first, I said, well, what's going on here? Is this inside baseball? You know, it's democracy. It really was interesting to watch how committed the people who came were. I mean, I'd been around the state quite a bit before the caucus month, February, but I'll tell you what an immersion experience that was, town by town, community by community, going in and really trying to meeting people and making the case. And I'm really excited what happened. We had targets. I think we broke through them. I think we're going to be on the ballot. I'm really looking forward to this convention. And there are a lot of uncommitted delegates, you know, still thousands of them. And we're going to reach out to them too. I'd love to win their support and convince them that a bold, progressive leadership that delivers for people is right for this state.
You know, when you talked about the convention, you know, your whole countenance just perked up. What is it about the convention that's really got you excited?
I'm inspired by the fact that the convention represents so many people coming together to make democracy work. Yeah. It's a really, really interesting thing. I mean, it's one of a kind, if you ask me, so I'm excited about it. The convention also excites me because it's a chance to make my case. You know, I can't wait to speak to it. I can't wait to stand up and explain where I think this Commonwealth can go and how good it could be. Right. So it's going to be great. And by now, you know, these are my friends I'm meeting because I've been all over the state meeting so many people, and it's a chance to reconnect as well as connect to new people.
Had you always thought about doing this at some point in your life, or this just kind of
never?
You woke up one day and said, I think I want to give this a shot.
Oh, I've always been interested in policy.
No, but I mean,
government.
but I mean,
running for office.
Exactly.
No, I had served at a high level administration. I ran the largest agency in federal government by budget, $800 billion. Right. I was immersed in the congressional debates on Capitol Hill. My office was next to Capitol Hill, and I was in the White House, you know, several days every month, and it was government. But that's what won me. I thought, my goodness, you know, it's a time in America when government that fights for people, that fights for the progressive agenda is weakened. Right. You know, you can see it. And yet when government does fight for people, like I was able to do as administrator of Medicare and Medicaid, I was able to fight, you know, for Medicaid patients so they got what they needed, fight for elders so they could afford their medicines, fight for LGBT people because I'm the administrator that wrote the regulation that said, you know, the visiting rights in a hospital for a same-sex couple is the same as for a heterosexual couple. And that fight was a great fight.
We're going to have to stop there, but before we go, if folks want more information about you and your candidacy, where do they go to get that?
BerwickForGovernor.com.
Okay.
BerwickForGovernor.com.
Don, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. All right, folks, I'm getting that wrap-up signal, so that tells me that we're out of time. We're out of here. We'll be back again next week, and so until then, you take care of yourself. Peace.